What is going on, everybody? I'm James Young with jamesyoungphotography.com, and this is Teach Me How to Lightroom. Today, we're going to dive in and take a look at the exact process that I use to edit my Instagram photos. Now, when you're dealing with Instagram, it's all about consistency, and the look and feel that I go for is kind of like a desaturated, kind of high contrast, almost kind of moody type of vibe. And this is exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to take this image here, and when we're done editing, it's going to look like this. Bam. Now let's check out what we did in order to get there. Now, before we go any further, I really want to just talk about SmugMug for just a second. SmugMug is the photo storage solution that I use for my clients to A, store my photos, and for B, to sell prints. Now, the great thing about SmugMug is that regardless if you are a working professional or even if you're a hobbyist, they have packages for you. And the best part of all is that any one of the packages comes right out of the gate with unlimited storage. So I don't know if you're anything like me and you shoot a lot of client work, or perhaps you go on vacation a lot, or whatever the case is, you're gonna rack up a lot of photos. And the great part is that every one of the tiers comes with unlimited photo storage. So that means they don't put a paywall behind a package that you might want a little bit more based on the volume of pictures that you're using. So just check the link in the description down below and you'll be able to save 15% on any one of the packages, and you can start storing all of your photos right away. So here we are on our before image, and let's just tackle the basic sliders. Now, on our white balance, we're gonna leave this where it's at. It says it's custom because I accidentally clicked it. And when you accidentally click it, it goes from as shot to custom. So we're just gonna leave it where it's at. So for the exposure, it's gonna vary for your results, and it's gonna depend on what your image looked like straight out of the camera. I'm actually happy with where the exposure is here, but if it was a little too dark, you can brighten it up by sliding it to the right. If it's a little too bright, you can slide it to the left and make it a little more dark. For our contrast, we're just gonna go up to about +10. Not a bunch of contrast is being added here. We're gonna get to the contrast when we get to the tone curve. Now for our highlights, we're gonna bring these down just a little bit, somewhere around -20, 22 is fine. That's gonna take the brighter areas of the image and add more detail into them by decreasing the brightness. For our shadows, we're gonna raise these up a little bit here to about +55 or so. And what that is doing, it's increasing the amount of detail that we have in the darker portions of the image by introducing more light into them. For our whites, we're going to add about +40. And for our blacks, we're gonna go about -5, -8's fine. Now, as we get to presence, things are going to get modified quite a bit here in terms of the final output. So for clarity, I'm going to go down about -10. And that's really just going to soften our edges a little bit here around our subject and things like that. Specifically with portraits, you don't want to crank this up too high. It really does a bad number on skin. Feel free to never do that to a person. With our vibrance, we're going to cut that down just a little bit. We're going to go -10 on that. That's going to cut down dramatically on our colder tones, our blues and areas like that. And then saturation, we're only going to cut that about -5. Now, even though these seem like small values, these do add up to make quite a difference. So let's scroll down and let's hit our tone curve. This is where a lot of magic is going to happen. And I'm just going to start by placing a node by clicking smack dab in the middle. I'm going to click and create another node halfway between the middle and the very end, and then another node halfway between the middle and the very beginning of this graph. Now what we're going to do is create an S curve, and the way we're going to do that is by clicking and dragging up on this node that we created here. Perfect. And then click and drag down on the node that we created here. Outstanding. So you can see Just by adding these 3 nodes and creating a curve and a line, we turn this off and we turn it back on. Holy cow, that made a huge difference. So again, even though these changes seem subtle, they really are making a big difference. And you can see here, feel free to never do that either. So here we go with a pretty nice tone curve there. And we're going to make our way down to HSL, which stands for hue, saturation, and luminance. So here's some of the values we're working with here in the hue section. We're only going to be modifying our orange, yellow, and green. And for orange, we're going to go down to about -5. For yellow, we're going to go down about -15. There we go. And for green, we're going down about -30. Now our saturation is where a lot of this magic is going to happen in terms of the colors. So for our yellows, we're going about -25. For our greens, we're really bringing this down to about -50 or so. For our aquas, we're bringing these down a little bit too, about -25. There we go. Our blues were coming down about -10. Our purples are going down about -5. And our magentas are going down about -10 also. And you can see that the image is already starting to take on that type of look of the whole moody and desaturated type of look. So if I turn this off and I turn it back on, you can see it's starting to shape up a little bit. Now on our luminance, we're also going to be modifying a couple of areas here. For orange, I'm actually going to pump that up about +5. For our greens, we're bringing these down to about -30. There we go. For our aquas, we're also bringing those down to about -20. For our blues, we're cutting those down about -10. And we're leaving our purple and magenta as they are. So let's turn that off. Let's turn it back on. You can see we're really getting somewhere now with our colors. So let's keep moving. Now we're going to get into split toning. This is where we're going to inject a lot more colors into specific areas that we want. So for our highlights, we're going to go to about 45. And for saturation, we're going about 10. Great. For shadows, we're going about 50. Then for saturation, we're only giving it a touch to 5. And this is going to be another one of those effects where it seems like we're not doing a lot. Then when we turn it off and we turn it on, you can see it's making a huge difference. Now for the next section of color, we actually have to scroll all the way down to the bottom and we land on camera calibration. This is where we get to even further fine tune the colors that are going on here. So I'm going to go to green primary and we're going like plus like 16, and we're going to go to saturation minus like 35. 34 is fine. For our blue, we're going to go up about 2 or so, and we're cutting it down also about minus 10. And again, subtle changes as they seem. Turn it off and turn it back on. They do add up to make a difference. Now, in terms of color and everything like that, I'm totally satisfied where the color is at. But I do want to introduce a little bit more contrast through the tone curve. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to take that node that we created right in the middle, and we're just going to raise it up some. Boom. Instantly a ton more contrast. Now we're almost there. In terms of the overall look and feel, I'm totally happy with where all my sliders are at and everything like that. But I do want to round this image out in particular. So I'm going to take a graduated filter. You can press M on your keyboard if you're feeling perky. I'm going to double click on effect to zero out all my sliders, and I want to bring out some detail in this area right here. So what I'm going to do is go to dehaze, go to like 29, 30, there we go, and just drag from the top right and bring it down to the bottom left. There we go. Outstanding. We may even want to crank that up just a little bit more, about 44. That looks cool. So if I turn this off and turn it back on, you can see it really brings out a lot of that detail there. So awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And one of the last things I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a little bit of sharpening. Now you can see my image is far from out of focus, but it could use a little bit more bite. So I'm going to add it about plus 70 or so on sharpening instead of the default 25 that Lightroom kind of starts the party with. So there we go. That is our final result. You can see here, this is where we started. Boom, that's straight out of camera. And then bam, this is where we ended up. This is now ready for my Instagram feed. I'm excited to post this and see how it does while it's out in the wild. Well, hopefully you learned something today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video as well. If you liked it, it would be great if you left a like on the video. If this is your first time checking out one of the videos, it would be great if you subscribed. Well, hey, I'm James Young with JamesYoungPhotography.com, and this is Teach Me How to Lightroom.